Greetings people of YouTube, and today I'm going to be doing another double review slash retrospective on the Transformers Legacy Leader Class G1 Blitzwing and Transmetals 2 Megatron. Don't even know if these guys are on camera fully or not. I'm not looking at a viewfinder. I have had these two figures here for a while and I've been wanting to do a review on them, but because it has been roughly a year after these guys' initial releases, I decided to make this video more of a retrospective or a comparison video between these two in order to see which one of them is more worth the leader class price point. Of course, if you are a collector as well, I am expecting you to have both of these already, but just in case you are not a collector, I hope this video is going to help you out on your purchasing decision. Anyways, I'm going to show off some turnaround footage of these two packaging. And let's not wait any further and take a closer look at both of these guys. Yeah, no unboxing segment, I'm sorry. And here are Blitzwing and Megatron transformed into the mode they came with out of the packaging. I'll have to say right off the bat, these two are some of my favorite Transformers figures in my collection. Both of them for different reasons, of course, which I will hopefully elaborate in the rest of this video. A little word of announcement here, this review is going to be a little more snappy than usual, as both of these figures have come out for a fairly long time. So the order in which I'll do this review, I'll be looking at Blitzwing's tank mode first, then I'll transform Blitzwing and take a look at his and Megatron's robot mode, and finally after that I will transform both of them into their alternate modes. Well, his other alt mode when it comes to Blitzwing. So let's get started and take a look at Blitzwing's tank mode. I gotta say, this is a really nice looking tank. Not quite the best mainline Transformers tank that I've seen, but it is a huge improvement over the Generations Blitzwing, I gotta say. He looks great from almost every angle except the dead front. Not really the worst because this cockpit is actually accurate to the show, but I feel like the size of this cockpit could have been a little more concise. I guess Blitzwing's been drinking his vitamins, hasn't he? Yeah, overall the tank mode looks great, it's very compact and really sturdy, rolls really well, and of course he's got some articulation in this tank mode, including a swivel here, and his turret can move up. If you want to, I'm sure you can plug in some 3mm blast effects here, which I don't have any, so I can't really show you how that works. Before I move on to the size comparisons, I would like to say that it is indeed possible to store all of Blitzwing's accessories in this tank mode. Here is Blitzwing in his fully accessorized tank mode, and it doesn't look that great. But of course, weapon storage is always appreciated. And whilst he is quite hefty for a leader class figure, he's actually not that big. Size comparisons. Here's Blitzwing next to Axle Grease, my previous review, the Transformers Legacy Evolution DEFCON. Comparing him to the other figure that I'm reviewing today, here's the Transmetals 2 Megatron. A regular 6-inch scale figure, we have the Marvel Legends Mr. Knight. And finally, the Transformers Earthrise War for Cybertron Voyager class Megatron. Despite the difference in size, I gotta admit this thing feels heavier. The amount of parts count in this figure just absolutely obliterates this Megatron. Not to mention that the tank mode itself aesthetically is vastly superior compared to Megatron. This actually looks like a cohesive tank as opposed to this Megatron, which still kind of looks like a robot. This thing can't even move its turret up and down. So that all wraps it up for his tank mode. Now let's get on to the transformation. And here is Blitzwing in his robot mode, and I freaking love this. Personally, Blitzwing has always been one of my favorite G1 Decepticon designs, and I think this figure recreates that beautifully. It is worth noting that the colors of this figure are a bit more saturated compared to the model that I could find, but I personally don't mind that at all. In fact, I actually prefer how this figure is colored considering he is a lot more vibrant. I gotta say the silver paint apps here do wonders to make this figure pop even more. Especially so when we look at the head sculpt, this looks great. His expression might look a little bland, but the sculpting itself is undeniably quite impressive. If we turn the figure to the back, you can see a backpack that is actually quite appropriate for Blitzwing, so I don't mind this at all. Also, the instruction told you to transform this whole turret section like this, but that looks incredibly silly. I really hate how this looks. Looks like the effects of his vitamins have worn off. Never mind, he saw it again. Not wasting any time and getting straight into his articulation here. Ball joint, hinge joint that moves upwards. Shoulders move out. If you hinge this unnecessarily tight part of the shoulder pads, his shoulders can rotate forwards about that far. Bicep swivel, single jointed elbow, wrist swivel, and they move inward for the transformation. Waist rotation. If you move the skirt flap forwards, he can kick all the way at 90 degrees, but he can't move back at all due to this unmovable butt flap. Don't know if you can even see that. Satisfyingly tight thigh rotation, finally. Single jointed knee that bends in more than 90 degrees. And finally at the foot you get a nice ankle pivot. Doesn't move up and down at all, which is kind of a shame for a leader class, but whatever. Guess if you're really into flying poses, you can point these toes downwards like... There you go. I guess you can do that for flying poses. In terms of accessories, he comes with quite a few. You get these two guns, his beautiful sword, and these two fit whatever they are. Integrating the sword and the blasters are simple enough, but these things are a whole other story. What even are they? I don't know why they're included. I feel like it's just to bump up the price point to a leader class price point, and honestly the only reason why I've kept this out of the box this whole time is just because I wanted to do this review. And the functionality of it is not even great at all. I can't even... I've tried my best to plug this in, and it just... like... This is actually the peg that is supposed to plug into his hands, but it is so tiny, allowing for barely any friction whatsoever, and it's just pretty much useless. Definitely my biggest problem with this purchase overall. Big, ugly, useless, throw them off to the side. Right, I think that all covers it for Blitzwing's robot mode. And I'll jump into the size comparison right after we take a look at this bad boy. And here is the Transmetals 2 Megatron in his robot mode, looking pretty big and is quite faithful to his animation model. With the only point of contention that I've seen people talk about being his head sculpt, which I kind of agree with. I mean, this does look a bit more monstrous than how I remember him looking, actually kind of reminding me of Ganondorf a little bit. And yeah, this is probably my biggest issue with the aesthetics of the figure, because the rest of it just looks so... come on, focus. Looks so epic. I know this design for Megatron isn't going to be the cup of tea for a lot of people, but I personally love this whole Chinese emperor type of aesthetic. Really suits his character quite well, and not to mention he's going to have a pretty badass alternate mode. Also, another point that kind of bothers me about this figure is the fact that his backpack juts out quite a lot, but most of the time it is covered by his wings and his head tail thingy, so it's really not that bad. So without question, aesthetics wise, he is pretty much a near enough 9 out of 10. If he had a slightly better head sculpt, it might have been a full on 10 out of 10, but that's still okay. Now let's jump into his accessories first, because he literally only includes one, which is this awesome flame effect, which of course can be used in the way that you would expect. Looks pretty cool in robot mode, but I think it looks even cooler in alt mode, spoilers. Or alternatively for this mode, he can use it as a fire club thingy, and this looks incredibly stupid. I don't like using the flame effects like this at all, but I guess if you want to do it, that is up to you. And how you pose this figure is also totally up to you. His head is only on a swivel, and it doesn't even move all the way 360 because of this ponytail, which also has a lot of articulation, but I'll cover this later. And yeah, this head is kind of limited. Shoulders can rotate all the way 360 on a really nice ratchet joint. This side is on a ratchet too, don't worry. Both shoulders can move outward, but this one can move out even further. And his dragon neck is a whole other kettle of fish, so I'll cover this later in his alternate mode, obviously. Bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, and no wrist swivel, but I guess due to the transformation you can move it like this. His waist swivel is reinforced by this beautifully sounding ratchet joint. His hips can move forward all the way, also reinforced by some really nice ratchet joints. Unlike Blitzwing, he can kick back to a full degree like that. He can do the splits. Oh crap, and I forgot to mention that Blitzwing can also do the splits. PS, you can actually store all of Blitzwing's accessories on his back. I'm good at what I do. Getting back to this figure, he also has a really nice thigh rotation. His knees bend all the way in. There is a calf joint here, but that is more for his alternate mode, so we shall focus on the ankles, which has a fantastic range going down, can move up as well, and a fantastic ankle pivot that moves both ways. The posability on both this guy and Blitzwing are pretty great. And after I cover their posability, it only makes sense if I cover about their size comparisons. Here's Blitzwing and Transmetals 2 Megatron next to the Transformers Siege Starscream, which looks really cool next to Blitzwing here. Here they are next to the Kingdom Beast Wars Megatron. These three are actually the only leader class figures I have. Comparing them to a regular 6-inch scale figure, we have the Marvel Legends Mr. Knight. And finally, here they are next to the Earthrise Megatron. Lots of Megatron I'm noticing in this review. Right, now I am done with their robot modes and let's get onto their transformation, and I'll start off with Blitzwing. And here are Blitzwing and Megatron in their alternate modes, and this Megatron is truly something else. Jet mode for Blitzwing is just okay though, which is why we shall take a closer look at him first, and then I'll take a closer look at this beautiful dragon mode, which I gotta be honest, this jet mode might be my least favorite alt mode for this Blitzwing, but I still don't think it looks too bad. In fact, because this is a triple changer, I can pretty much forgive a lot of the flaws that this alt mode has. It's just, in my opinion, the least elegant amongst all three modes, especially when you flip it over at the bottom and you can look at all that tank kibble. Still though, it's fairly impressive for a triple changer, and again, it is better than the generation Blitzwing jet mode in my opinion. Not to mention, this thing is pretty solid and it's really fun to whoosh around. Careful with these wings though, they can bend downward quite easily, and on this side it can even bend upward a little bit. That's pretty annoying. As far as some extra features go, this thing actually has a landing gear that I got stuck in there. Yep. Yeah. And here's this extremely underwhelming landing gear, and it doesn't even roll at all. Gotta admit though, if you want to prop him on the ground, I think it does look better with the landing gear deployed. And yeah, overall this jet node is pretty solid. Painting and sculpting looks pretty good, especially if you view him from a bird's eye perspective. And of course, you can store every one of Blitzwing's weapons in this jet mode. I'm done with this flying piece of crap, and now on with this still flying yet not as much of a piece of crap. Holy moly, this thing is gigantic! If we spread the wingspan even more, you can see how big this thing is. It doesn't even fit within my review station. It's so cool. To be honest, from the offset with this figure, the dragon mode really was the mode that I am looking forward to. And I gotta say, this thing did not disappoint. Not only is he a massive piece of mother effer, the amount of sculpted in detail and the paint applications here are incredible. Pretty much the best official option you're gonna get for this character. Seriously, this thing is so big that I can't even fit everything in my camera if his neck is fully straightened out. Though he may not be as big as some of our older leader class figures, I still am pretty grateful for how big he is. Also, if you thought the front looked good, wait until you look at the back. Look at the amount of sculpted in scales over here and this beautiful wing. Made out of a really nice stencil material, so you're not gonna break it. I cannot stop praising this Dragonaut. I mean, look at this head sculpt. Beautifully represents what we got in the show. And if you open up with small spoilers for the posability, you can plug in this piece of flame effect, and with this attached, he looks mighty. Truly one of my favorite figures in my collection. I'm really sorry if my reaction is a bit overwhelming here. It's just that dragons, dinosaurs, and reptilians in general are kind of my thing, so that's why I love this so much. Not only does he look great, does he feel great, he also poses incredibly. His mouth can open, which I already mentioned. And you get 4 ball joints at the neck, along with a hinge joint and a swivel here for good measure. They really did not skimp out on this neck articulation. This neck flap can be a little annoying, but I haven't really had that much of a problem with it. His shoulders can rotate all the way 360 degrees. They can move out. Bicep swivel. Single jointed elbow that bends in a whole lot, but it can't really straighten out, unfortunately. Wrist rotation. Some third-party figures don't even have this. And a horizontal hinge joint at the wrist. No waist rotation, but that is okay. The leg articulation is pretty much still the same as in robot mode, but now we get this calf/toe hinge joint that is quite tight, and that's really good. For the tail, you get a hinge joint at the base here, and a further 1, 2, 3 ball joints to maximize the range of the tail. I guess a little complaint that I do have with this figure is that the tail could have been a bit longer. That's more of a minor nitpick, really. And of course, for the wings, hinge joint, and these membrane pieces can move individually, but that is a little easier to show on this side as it is a little more loose. Also, I forgot to mention that in the Dragon mode, these spikes here are supposed to be hinged like this, but it's not really that important, really. It's just what the instructions said. Yeah, this Dragon mode is really blowing me away. And as I've said multiple times during this segment, this Dragon mode is huge! Size comparisons along with Blitzwing. Here are Blitzwing and Megatron next to T-Rex Megatron. I really didn't think this T-Rex Megatron could get surpassed, but man, this Dragon Megatron is just so cool! You can see that he is obviously a lot longer as well than this T-Rex Megatron. I gotta say that the T-Rex Megatron does feel a bit heavier, but I think that is because the transformation for this Megatron makes it a lot more condensed, whereas the Transmetals 2 Megatron's transformation kind of stretches him out and disperses the mass throughout all his body. Here they are next to Starscream, Mr. Knight, and finally, the Earthrise G1 Megatron. And that concludes my review for the Transformers Legacy Leader Class G1 Blitzwing and Transmetals 2 Megatron. So this ended up turning out like a regular review after all, I'm sorry. And I'm also really sorry if this review seems kind of half-assed, because there is actually a certain review that I would like to do after this that is a lot more exciting. But anyways, about these two figures, both of them are priced at about the same, and in my opinion, both of them are worth the leader class price point, but in different ways. Blitzwing here, I think, has a lot more engineering and accessories, but Megatron definitely has size going for him. So, if you like your leader class figures to be well engineered, well accessorized, and well articulated, then I recommend going with Blitzwing here. But if you like your leader class figures to be huge, full of presence, and have the ultimate of a dragon, I suggest get the Transmetals 2 Megatron. Of course, it also depends on whichever character / design you prefer. I personally am a big fan of both of them, which is why I have both of them. And one more fortunate thing that is worth noting, at least in my country here, these two figures have greatly reduced in price, so it's a lot easier to get them. I hope you all have enjoyed this review. If you didn't, that's okay, because this review is kind of filler anyway. But if you did, I highly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a like, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment, and share this video with a friend if you would like. And hopefully I will see you all next time. Goodbye!